You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Before we begin, if you enjoy listening to the shows, and we really enjoy recording them, take a moment and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. It's free. And while you're there, leave us a review. With that in mind, a few thank yous to those of you who have left recent reviews, including Karemba, Tyler Ross, and Dog Lover IN. That's uppercase. We figure it's Indiana. Thank you so much for your kind words. Other big news, the B&H Photo Podcast landing page is up and running. Our entire catalog of past shows are all a click away. You can find our landing page at bnhphoto.com/explorer/podcast. And Explorer is EXPLORA. We're from New York. We spell it the way we say it. Also, if you can't get enough, you like that, huh? Also, if you can't get enough of us, I should also mention that John Harris, Jason Tables, and myself all write product reviews and other photo-related articles for B&H Explorer, which can be found on the B&H Photo homepage. Okay, here we go. To start off, Al's Gearhead Pick of the Week. We have a Fujifilm GF670. Now get this. This is an out-of-production folding rangefinder camera that shoots 6x6 and 6x7 format film. Perfect for travel and day tripping. Measures only 2.5 inches when folded up. Uses 120 and 220 film, which you can no longer even get. 120 you can get. It has an 80 millimeter normal lens. The reason why we have them is because somebody was poking around behind the dumpster or the garage behind the Fuji factory and found crates of them. So now all of a sudden we have these wonderful classic folders. There you have it.
We can call Dick Haviland to get the 220.
Oh,
yeah.
That's right. You know
right.
what? Yeah, that's right. We do have a source for 220.
Yeah.
Call us after the show. We'll make arrangements.
And
that's
check
right.
our episode on respool and reuse.
That's right.
Yeah.
Respooling film.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. A recent
but
show.
Alan, day tripping? What the hell's day tripping?
We'll talk later, John. We'll talk later.
It's like day drinking. All right.
All righty, here we go. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about long-term documentary projects, specifically those tied to social issues. The dedication and rigor of a long-term documentary apply just as much to any long-term project, regardless of the subject. There's persistence in the face of an uphill task, constant reevaluation of the worth of your project, experimentation with technique and gear, not to mention financing and logistical coordination. And if you're dealing with human subjects, you need the skills to gain trust and the ability to communicate effectively with others. We're fortunate to be joined by two guests who are both in the midst of just such a project, Salwan George and Griselda San Martin. Griselda is a documentary photographer who covers issues with immigration and identity and portrays groups of people that don't fall within the stereotypes we often have on such issues. Her work has appeared in the New York Times and Huffington Post, amongst other publications. One of her series that John particularly likes is about a girls' flag football team called Las Delfinas. Another is on a deported father and his daughter who meet every month at the border wall in Tijuana, where he plays his guitar and sings to her. Currently, she's working on a project about American service members, veterans, who, suffering from PTSD as a result of their service, have gotten into trouble with the law and as a result have been deported to the country of their origin. Welcome back, Griselda. Good to see you again. You're doing a lot of traveling in places that you have a lot of hauling to do. What kind of equipment are you bringing around? I imagine you're trying to be conscious of the weight factor and logistics of carrying stuff around. Have you gotten your since you started this project, have you narrowed down your pack a little bit to more efficient equipment?
Well, yes, I've learned some things, but basically I just try to carry just what I really need, like basically 2 bodies and 2 lenses. I usually shoot photo with a 35 millimeter, and video, I try to use that same lens, but sometimes I use a zoom lens.
Mm-hmm.
I use a Canon 5D Mark III and 6D, my old camera, it's as a backup camera.
All right, and the lens choices, 35 you mentioned, and your zoom?
the Zoom is an old one that I have. I don't use it that much. I try not to use it.
Super minimal. I
But
love it,
sometimes
So you really have streamlined your gear down to the most basic essential.
I love my 50 millimeters.
Yeah.
But I think
But you see through
because
35.
of the spaces that sometimes I'm in very small spaces, the 50 is limits. It's very limited. So I switched to 35.
And wider is no good for you.
The distortion sometimes.
Gotcha. Okay. 35 is palatable.
Yeah.
All righty.
And also, always I carry my audio recorder and microphone because it's difficult to do both video and photo at the same time, but sometimes I can just go back wherever I'm staying and get the other gear. So I try to carry it with me.
Now, you have two projects you're working on. The first project had to do with the veterans. Is that correct? And that took you to the Wall Project.
That's correct.
Okay. So going back to the veterans, was that initially still and then became video? And where was your priority?
The Veterans Project is mainly video, and I'm working with two other people.
Did it evolve into a video or did it start?
It started as video.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
And we've obviously taken also, we've done photography, but it's mainly video because it's a very complicated subject and it's about the law, it's about the people. There's so many things in this that we thought video was a better way to tell this story.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah,
Do you
sure.
feel that the still photography has a limit then? I mean, do you feel that you can't tell everything you want to?
It depends. I think it depends on the story. For my Wall project, I started doing photography, and I met this Jose, who's the main character of my video, in I think it was May, and then 2 months after, I was back in Tijuana with the idea of doing a video. So basically, the month of July 2016, I was working on the video. Of course, I was taking photos at the same time, but not at the same time. But my focus was this video story. I had it all in my head. So
Now, doing stills and video, as any wedding photographer can tell you, can be pretty complex, and it splits your focus. And I would assume that the kind of work you're doing, you really have to stay focused and stay with the moment. You're really working on the fly without a script. And jumping from video to stills can be jarring to the whole process. It throws everything off. Have you played around with screen grabs at all, getting still images from video? Because I know there are some pretty good options out there right now where you can just shoot video and then pull a decent still, at least for online use, out of that. Have you played with that or considered it at all?
I've had to, because I've been asked to provide some high resolution images from my video.
Gotcha.
But I don't like to. I prefer to focus on one, either video or photography.
And you're doing both. You're shooting all of this stuff by yourself, or do you have another camera person with you? This is all yours, right?
And it depends on the project. For the veterans, we're a team of 3.
Ah, okay.
And are you
All right.
the director in this case, or are you working 3 independently and trying to put something together?
No, we're working all together, but we do many different things, all of us.
Okay.
2 of us are more focused on the visual part of the story, and we have a writer too.
I see. Okay. And how long has that project been going on?
4 years.
That's the long one.
What
That's the one.
do you see an end to either of these yet, or where do you stand with them? Because again, these are long-term projects, and we've had shows with this and discussions on the past. And determining when it's okay to put the camera down and move on is not easy at times. Where do you stand right now?
It's very difficult.
I know.
We've had times where we've said, "Okay, let's finish it now. We have a lot of material. We have a lot of footage. Let's stop." And then the next day something happens, and no, we can't stop right now. Right now it's impossible. We have to continue for a little bit, see what's gonna happen in the next few months.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's very difficult. For the Wall project, I thought it was over, but now it keeps coming back.
Keeps dragging it back in.
Yeah.
Now, how often are you returning? Because you're based in New York now, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, so and everything that your projects are far away from here. So how often are you hitting both of these locations?
So I was in Tijuana last year many times and for several weeks each time.
And was this something you were just financing out of your own pocket?
That was my
mostly?
next question, yeah.
You don't have to give specifics, but you know.
Yes.
Okay.
I found ways to spend very little money, especially in Mexico. It's a lot easier than in New York. But yes, it's difficult because there's many things that I would like to do that I don't do because I'm limited by the financial.
So this is a work of passion for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I wish we could show everybody your expression when you said yes just now. Your expression alone said
So,
yes.
but with the wall project, you said you were working on it for several months before you found your character, and did that bring it to a whole new life once you knew you kind of had this person that would be a focus, or was that something you kind of realized later?
The moment I heard him singing, I knew I wanted to do a video about this person.
Okay.
Because I thought it was very representative and symbolic. So yes, it's completely different. I think it's the same story or the same issue, but it's very different.
But in the months leading up to that, did you say, where am I going with this project? What am I doing here many times and kept going back with the hopes of finding something, or was it incrementally getting more and more valuable to you, worthwhile?
So at the beginning, I found this place, and I was going to cover other events, not the families meeting or visiting. And I didn't really see at the beginning that was gonna be my a project that I would spend so much time working on. But many times I would just go there and talk to the people. No, not a single photo. Just talk to the people who were in the Mexico side, also talking to the people through the wall to experience what it feels like. I mean, I cannot even, I don't want to say that I can feel what they feel. It's impossible. They are separated by a wall from their family members. That's not my situation, but I wanted to see what it feels like standing in front of a wall and just, I never done that before.
Maybe just to clarify to some people that, we'll link your site so people can check out, but, in Tijuana, San Diego, there is a wall, and it's a wall that you can only reach your fingertips through, from what I understand through your photos, right?
Yes, it's the U.S.-Mexico border wall. It's the end of it, and there is an area in this wall called Friendship Park, and that's a place. It's the only officially established meeting place along the U.S.-Mexico border. So on the Mexico side, there is no control, no police, nothing. But on the U.S. side, there's the border patrol controlling, and there is a second fence. So the families are only allowed to stay there for a few hours on Saturday and Sunday. So that limited a lot my time to work on this project. I could only be there 4 hours on Saturday and Sunday. That's it. And I had to wait until the next weekend. So that was complicated.
Yeah.
But yes, there is a wall.
Yeah.
Now, the other project that you have going on with the veterans, this is about people who have served in the United States Armed Forces, who were born elsewhere, came in, have green cards, were here legally, joined the armed forces, fought overseas for the U.S., and were injured in one manner. It could be psychological, could be physical, or both. These guys come back from battle and, like many service men and women, suffer from PTSD. And some of these people also get into trouble of all sorts. So the individuals that you are talking about are those who came back, had problems, got into trouble, weren't dealing with it well, were incarcerated for X amount of time, and upon release, because of the rules and regulations of being a member of this country, if you break certain rules, you're out.
Who are the subjects you're following? Like, did you vet different people and find that these were the ones you wanted to follow their story, or is it an overall thing?
We're following a lot of people right now.
Okay.
We still have to decide who we're gonna focus on at the end. But yes, we're following a lot.
So this is these are internationally located. These are veterans now all over the planet, really. who were here.
Yes. And actually, not all of them were in combat. Not all of them went to war.
Yeah, and also many of these veterans came here as children with their parents.
Can we jump to the idea of how you gain trust of these people, the people you're dealing with? Obviously, their situations are tenuous. They may not want their situation known. They may want to remain anonymous.
And obviously, they've already gone through a lot of stress.
Yeah, but it's your job to kind of get their story out. How do you do that? I mean, that's a tough question, but...
Of course, there's people who don't want to talk in every project I've done, but in many cases, they do want to talk because they've been ignored for so long, and they're banished from the country that they think that they consider their country because they grew up here. All their family members are here. Their kids, so they want to tell their stories. Most of them. Some of them don't. To gain trust, I think it's in our case in this project. I think in all the projects I've done is just spending time, and just telling them why we're doing this. Or one thing that happens with long-term projects is that sometimes the subjects get a little confused with us being there all the time and coming back, and they don't know if we're reporters, if we're friends, what we're doing, why don't we publish anything yet?
Yeah. I would imagine there is a good deal, a certain degree of suspicion.
Yeah,
but that gets back to how you get past that and how you establish the trust, and it's always fluid, I guess.
But we try to. We say. I always say, if I see that the conversation is going somewhere that it should not go because I should not be there, I just say, Of course, I hear things that maybe they would never tell to a CNN reporter with a microphone. But I'm just right there
sitting.
Anything
you'd like to share?
No. I'm
just joking.
I mean, it's...
I hear you. Yeah.
Also,
that's because there's a trust possibly, too. That obviously, they're not going to let this stuff slip if they don't trust you.
And how can you sometimes, when people don't know what you're really up to, how can you explain, even if you don't know it, the end goal? How can you explain, or do you feel the need to explain?
No, I always explain from the beginning that I'm doing a project about this subject. And that's why I want to talk to you. That's why I'm here. But of course, you start the conversation and you're sitting down having coffee maybe, and it's very different to have a microphone that says Univision, CNN, Fox News, Channel 5. It's different. They look at you different, and they tell you different things that they would not tell to a...
What led you to this project? I mean, was it something that you thought about, or did you just happen to meet somebody, or did you hear a story?
The veterans?
Yeah.
I was in Colorado doing my master's in journalism, and I heard about two brothers in Colorado Springs who were facing deportation, and they were Vietnam veterans. So I thought that was impossible. How can you serve? How can you be in Vietnam fighting for the U.S. and then face deportation? That was very shocking to me. So I started with these two brothers, and that led us to Tijuana. I also one of my partners in this project. She studied with me in Colorado, and she was also doing a project about the military veterans, and we just joined forces and we went to Tijuana.
Now, would you consider yourself an advocate for the people you photograph?
I'm not an activist, but I work on subjects that I find are important to me, and important for people to know, especially things that many people ignore or have never heard. Not because they don't care, but because they've never heard.
Is that a really important aspect of it? Let's say there's a story that you were interested in, but it was a well-known story. Would you pass? Would you look to something else? I mean, we're talking years of your life invested into something, so these are big decisions.
I don't know. I would not say I will pass. It has to be something that I care about to invest that many times. Yes.
Let's say there's something you come across, an an event, an action, a character who doesn't kind of fit within the narrative, somebody whose actions you can't be okay with. But how do you handle that? Do you follow the
good
story?
question.
Do you stick with that? Do you just exclude it?
I don't have an idea from the beginning of what I want to say with my projects. I just let things happen. And of course, there's going to be things that don't fit the story. But if it's part of the story, I include that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's... But I'm trying... I mean, I'm a journalist, so I'm trying to be objective and unbiased. I just don't want to tell one side of the story. There's people who don't agree with this. Of course, I want to include that in my project.
And do you see a difference between a journalist and a documentarian?
Well, yes. I would like to call myself a documentarian because of the length and the depth of the projects that I work on. But I'm a photojournalist too, a journalist. It's
stories.
I think it's the ethics. Not because you're a documentarian, you don't have to follow the ethical rules of journalism. That's what I think.
We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back with Salwan George.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. Send us a tweet at BHPhotoVideo, #BHPhotoPodcast.
We are back. We are now being joined by Salwan Georges, who has shot for the Washington Post, The Intercept, and is currently a staff photographer for the Detroit Free Press. Salwan covers politics, issues of the day, and all of the things a staff photographer shoots, from U.S. Marines at Paris Island to college football to Rolling Stones and Iggy Pop concerts at the famed Fox Theater. But he also keeps a close eye on the immigrant communities in Michigan as the subject of a long-term project on immigrants and the life they lead in Dearborn and Detroit. Salwan knows personally of this subject as he arrived to Michigan as an immigrant just 12 years ago. With his family, he left Iraq during the first Gulf War, living for 6 years as a refugee in Syria without the eligibility to even attend school. But in 2004, his family emigrated to the U.S., where he began high school and started on his path to becoming a photographer. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
That's really good stuff.
Can I just jump in real quick to ask, from high school to photographer, what was in between? And when did you start shooting?
Well, in between, I went to community college. My plan wasn't to do photography. Then they had a student show, and I walked past and as soon as I saw that, I was like, something clicked in there, and I was like, maybe I should give photography a shot. I mean, I always like to paint, but I wasn't a great painter. I'll throw that out there. but I always loved nature. Where I grew up in Syria, I grew up outside Damascus, and it was a Christian Orthodox monastery. I lived there with my family, and it's just beautiful nature, and we were surrounded by olive trees, and that's why I was doing there, just taking care of those olive trees. So I spent a lot of time in nature. So I always wanted to do something with as soon as I saw the student show, I always thought maybe I should try to do photography.
And did you kind of were you good at it right away? I mean, did you know you had a touch, or what?
Well, I think what helped me first to start, I took a class with a really amazing teacher. His name is Rob Kangas at the Oakland Community College in Royal Oak, Michigan, and we started just doing film. I didn't do any digital for like a year. I was just doing film photography, and I think that kind of
you actually learned photography. That means,
yeah. So it's kind of underappreciated. It's kind of sad, I think. It's just when you learn film, then jump to digital, you're really going to be good at it, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then from there to photojournalism and news photography, did you go through the steps that everybody goes through? Art, abstract art and landscape and pictures of your friends, and then you found out what you wanted to do?
This is so weird. You're not going to believe it. So in 2010, I decided to join a friend who's from Italy to go to Montana to participate in the Little Bighorn battlefield Indian war reenactment. So like for me, this is
Did
like
you know that, Griselda? No.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
We're going to book tickets right after the show if you
Yeah.
want to join us.
So for me, it was kind of like kind of exploring America. For me, it was totally new. I've never met Native Americans in my life. I've never knew a lot about the history of the Civil War and the Indian War. I mean, I learned a little bit in high school and college, but this is like firsthand experience.
Right.
So along the way, I picked up a book by Edward Curtis,
Oh, yeah,
of course, yeah.
and I fell in love with portrait photography at that time and how we explore all the Native American tribes. And I kept looking through that, and we drove from Michigan to Montana, so it was like days of drive.
Right.
So I started doing a little bit more like portrait and documentary work. But what really made me to jump to photojournalism in 2012, my first cousin, who was still living in New York, he was just at work, and he was killed by a terrorist group who were targeting Christians, Iraqis. And at that time, they weren't known by ISIS. Like now, they're known by ISIS. So when he was killed, and that first day when we gathered with the family at home, and I had just a Fuji point and shoot, I started taking some pictures. And then I looked at it, and it's like, there's something. There are really stories need to be told, so people know like what it takes for for us refugees to come here. We risk our life, to come to this country for better future.
And those photos that you're talking about, were they just of your family and gathering and hearing the news and suffering, or did you go out to the community around you?
Well, at first it was just the family, and then later I started taking trips to Dearborn and then asking them questions and kind of hearing the story.
Mm-hmm.
The family project is going to be kind of part of my long-term project later.
Mm-hmm.
Published the family project, nothing been published yet, but some of my refugees in Dearborn and in Metro Detroit have been published.
How did you first get a connection to the newspapers? Because you work for the Washington Post, Intercept, and now you're a staff photographer with the Free Press. Did you approach them with some pictures? How'd you get that? Also, by the way, just a little aside. If you wanted to have more of a detailed background of the expansion of the American West, I suggest you see Blazing Saddles, a very good movie by Mel Brooks. It'll give you a little bit of historical background. But getting back to it, how did you start working with newspapers?
Well, just to stay there about the movies, when I was traveling, I think we stopped in, I think it was Wyoming, and there was this place called 1880s Town, and when I went there, they had the prop from the actual movie of Dancing with Wolves.
Uh-huh.
It was. Yeah, it was very fascinating for me because my friend told me, if you want to go watch this movie before you go on the trip. So I was going there expecting to see stuff like the movie, but of course not.
Yeah.
So
that's funny.
Going back to how I got into the news. We had a present. I was in one of after Oakland Community College. I was looking to go to a photography school, but then I just thought about it. I decided to do just journalism degree. So I ended up going to Oakland University. That's also in Rochester Hills, Michigan. And with my photography skills, I wanted to learn how to write, to be a kind of better storyteller. I decided to go to Oakland University. So I did journalism degree there. And one of the class presentation, they had a Free Press photographer. And then I was showing them some of my work after the presentation. And they decided to ask me to come down just to kind of meet the director of photography there. And then they decided to hire me as a freelancer. And that's how it started. So after I finished school, they offered me an internship. And I asked my friend, his name is Joshua Lout. You probably guys know him, a great photographer from Chicago. He helped me connect with the New York Times and the Washington Post. And in this 2 months, I got about 8 assignments from Washington Post, 2 assignments from New York Times, and I was on the front pages of both papers. And I think that kind of helped me my paper to kind of offer me a job.
I'd say so. And were these these photos you're talking about, were they all shot in the Detroit area?
Yeah, I did a really awesome assignment. That was like still one of my favorite. It was when the city of Hamtramck become a Muslim majority. So the Washington Post hired me to do it was a 3-day shoot, and then just to kind of show the city where Hamtramck used to be mainly Polish, and it ended up on Sunday's front page. So it was like that was my first big accomplishment.
Great.
I was very happy with that.
So you're constantly kind of working on documenting your community. Is that fair to say? And within that, you're doing the assignments that you get. And with that in mind, I guess we want to ask you about the long form and how you stick with it and why you stick with it. But my first question is, you need to be, as a journalist, as objective as possible. But yet you're also working a long form documentary where there's room for a personal point of view. How do you balance those? I mean, are there times where you just put one hat on or the other, or are you kind of always doing them at the same time?
Well, nowadays, newspapers they don't have as much time like before. Like they used to give you like weeks to go do an assignment, or even National Geographic, for example. Not all assignments are like you can go spend a couple months nowadays.
Or everything a couple of years. That's all history. Yeah. It's hit and run, really.
Yeah, so newspapers are the same. I mean, a lot of assignments I do is like maybe in 1 day or 2 days, except one assignment where I found the family was documenting Sudanese refugees. The reason why it took I was able to work on it longer is because I did a film with that as well. So, when you do photo and video, you can kind of get that expansion to shoot maybe for a week or a month. But during that time, I was doing other assignments as well. It was like when you have time, you can go work with this family. Speaking of my long-term project, I'm very fortunate to live in Michigan, and we have one of the largest Middle Eastern community here. So for me, it just like driving maybe 15 minutes and being in Dearborn, or like 10 minutes by my house, I can meet the largest Christian community, Chaldeans community around here, and Dearborn is the largest Muslim community. So whenever, like on my days off, I usually go there. Whenever, like before my assignment, before my shift, I usually stop by there to kind of explore and meet families and talk to refugees.
And have you found certain subjects, certain people that you return to kind of follow their story, or are you always kind of, are you trying to keep it as wide as possible?
Well, before I was kind of like all over the place. I was photographing a lot of the surface in the community. Like, for example, just like focusing on just what's happening and outside in the community, but not really focusing on a family or two. So at the moment, I'm working with few families that I think they have a great story.
Is the story their lives as immigrants? Is that kind of the basis of the story, or are there individual ideas within each family that are going to come out, or you're just waiting to see?
Well, part of it is it's basically the American dream, if you want to say like that's the terminology everybody use, is coming here as an immigrant, and how do you balance yourself where you live, like maybe half of your life as an American and the other half when you come back home as a Middle Eastern, or how are you as an Arabic American living in the United States, and as well as other refugees where they seeking refugee here, trying to get their green card, and some of them are fighting to get their green card, but now with the new immigration policies, they're going through a lot. So it's very crucial time right now for a lot of the refugees in Middle East. And they're trying to come here, and the refugees here from Middle East, that they're trying to stay and make a better future for their kids.
And I mean, is it fair to say that it's easier for you to do this, given that you are an immigrant and you're from a community that's related? And do you feel that makes a difference? I guess it's obvious that it does, but can you talk a bit about gaining the trust of people and how you go about that?
I wouldn't say it's easier for me, and I'll tell you why. With the Muslim community, it's not as easy as a male photographer to photograph women. And of course, I respect that. That's part of their religion and part of privacy. So for me, it was really hard to find a family that agrees for me to be everywhere with them and follow them. when I first started doing this project, I spent a lot of times not taking my camera, just going and trying to get stories. It's really important to not view or like people I'm working with as a subject, because when you view them as a subject, you fall in this way. You may just use them just to get what you want. But for me, it's more of a storytelling. So for me, a lot of times, like I just not really shoot. A lot of days I take my camera, but not really shoot anything. I just spend time with the family trying to hear their stories.
Do you routinely enter a project like this without a camera?
Depending on what I'm doing. See, for my everyday assignment, when I have
if you have 3 hours to get an assignment, you can't just sit around, right?
Yeah. For me, I go like tell them what I'm doing and what I'm trying to achieve.
What do you say you're trying to achieve?
I usually go and tell them I'm working on a story about for example, I'm working a story about Hamtramck, and I'm trying to get your thoughts about what's, like, for example, the Muslim ban, and I would love to hear your your opinion. And I usually record with my iPhone, just to use it for my photo caption, like to get a quote or something. It's really important to have a quote in your photo caption nowadays. It's kind of it gives more it gives more life to the picture, I feel,
and credibility. Sure.
And
focuses it.
And if it's a portrait, I'll ask him, can I please take a portrait of you afterward? And if it's some just documenting something, I usually get the permission and just let them do their whatever they're working on, and just kind of move around and work my way out.
So it's fair to say that your day-to-day work can blend pretty easily with the long-term project. Do the people you're photographing know that it's part of a long-term project and you're not exactly sure how it's going to end?
The people that I'm working for the long-term project with, they know, because they've been seeing me since 2014, and they know what I'm working on. So they kind of trust me now and know that they know I work for the Detroit Free Press, but they also, what I'm doing with the community is totally different. I kind of, that's the good thing, is to also explain yourself and explain what you're working on at the beginning, not like in the middle of long-term project. Tell them, oh, well, I'm gonna publish part of it, and like tomorrow, for example.
Right. And do you share images? Do you give back images in the long-term project?
The thing that were published already, I went back to the community, and it's one of the places I usually go a lot to. It's an Iraqi coffee house. It's one of the only one in Dearborn. When you're inside, you feel like you're in Baghdad. That's how amazing that place is. And I usually, maybe when I'm like working in the area, I stop by and get a tea, and then one time I bought them some prints, and they hang them like in the kitchen area, which is kind of cool. And that was during Ramadan. They were celebrating cooking this huge meal for all the refugees, and part of the pictures were already published. So I just went and print a few prints and send it to them as a thank you.
Nice.
I would imagine that having actual press credentials and working, say, for the Free Press or any major news organization, probably makes it easier for you and gives you credibility and less of a suspicion factor going into these things. So I imagine it works in your favor.
Not all the time, because you got some refugees that don't even know the paper. They don't. You got some refugees. Yeah, they got some refugees. They really focus on getting the news from the Middle Eastern media. So. But like when I explain to them what I'm working on, they kind of, they know the paper. Later I'll explain, I work for this paper, but I'm working on this long-term project, and if it's okay for me to follow you and document your life, and they understand what I'm working on.
Gotcha.
And these people, when I started going, I was still a student in college when I started first working with them. So they kind of know my career.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the staff job, because as I'm sure you know, their staff jobs are harder and harder to come by.
That's a prize these days.
I know, and then the Detroit Free Press is pretty unique in some regards. But how big is the photography department there, and how do your photography mates look at you when you say, "Hey, I got a staff job at a newspaper"?
I know, it's. I'm very fortunate to get a staff job right after right after college, which is, you don't never hear of that, nowadays. I've worked with some, I work with some amazing colleagues. They very like since I was an intern and freelancer, they really helped me grow as a photographer. And I have two amazing photo editors who, like, without them, I feel like photographers, they really need photo editors nowadays because they can really help you make the hard cut on your photos and represent your work the best way possible. And we have about, I would say, about 10 to 12 photo and video, staffs.
And do you share with your editors the photos that would fall into the long-term project category? Do they look at those?
Yeah, sometimes, because how busy we are with like everyday assignments. Sometimes I do share that with them.
Do you approach your longer term project, which obviously you've been working on for a while now, differently now that you've been shooting assignment work that again is a little more specific with a tighter framework, tighter parameters?
When doing everyday assignment, you really gotta get the photo as soon as you can. And nowadays, like when I'm like, sometimes I go to assignment at 5 and the deadline is at 6.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I do it, I use wireless cameras and get the photos that I think will work for the paper. Even if it's front page, I have to get the photo, send it to my phone, caption it fully, and send it to the photo desk right away through my phone within like 15 minutes being there. So
that's the antithesis of your long-term projects.
Yeah, that's like totally different, and that's like, it's a lot of pressure on you. I think it kind of helps in your long-term project. You know why? Because when you work on pressure, you have to kind of work and be creative as fast as you can
on your feet, on the fly.
Yeah, so when you go into a long-term project, you have so much time, so you don't waste time. You use your time very wisely, and it kind of plays in the benefit. The cool thing about the Free Press is part of the USA Today network.
Okay.
And so USA Today network, sometimes they use us. Like, for example, they win. I think last year they sent me to Lorain, Ohio, to do a story about undocumented immigrants from Puerto Rico and Mexico. So sometimes I get some cool assignments from the network, but that's not like every month. It's very rarely,
Mm. Can you tell us what you carry in your bag? What your gear is? What brand? What models? What lenses?
Sure. So for work, we have Canon cameras. I have a Mark III and a 6D, so I can use the wireless whenever I'm like on deadline. I use that camera more. I also have we have a Pull C100 Mark II camera for video, because I shoot video and photo for work.
Right.
And at the Eddie Adams, they were so nice. Nikon and gave us a 360 key emission camera.
That's right.
I think I'm going to start bringing that to my long-term project as well, to shoot a film with the refugees at home.
Oh, great.
That'd be kind of cool. And I could also use it for my work. Lenses, at work we can get any lens we like. But my favorite lens that I use a lot is the Sigma Art Lens 35 1.4.
Yeah.
That's like my main lens. I really love that lens.
You guys can share a camera bag, you know that?
Well, that's great to hear you using the Sigma.
But recently, I Ed Cashy hooked me up with the Fujifilm, and they loaned me a camera for a few months. I sadly had to return it. It was the X Pro 2. They sent it to me with 2 lenses to use it for my long-term project. And to be honest with you, I just totally fell in love with that camera.
You're not alone.
It's I think like from my personal work, I'm gonna jump to mirrorless because it's just so easier. It's very quiet, especially like if I'm inside a mosque and there's like somebody reading. I mean, it's just so quiet when using these cameras, and it's so light, and it makes me less. It makes me less visible. It's nice.
You blend in a little bit better.
I blend in it better. I mean, people think I'm just like somebody with a point and shoot, which is it kind of helps. I'm not trying to like blend in, but it just kind of makes my work. Especially like the one time I used it, and I really enjoy using it the most, when I went to Paris Island to do the marine story. I mean, imagine me carrying the C100 doing film and then having to take photos. So if I had like a really big body, it would have been really hard. So I used that camera for that assignment, and it just made it so much easier for me.
You did bring up an interesting point, though, that I think, aside from all this, it makes a big difference. That when you're photographing people, especially street photography, or whatever, you show up with a full-blown DSLR with some monster lens on it. It's intimidating. Whereas a lot of the mirrorless cameras are very, very unassuming, and they look amateur. And again, when you pick it up and hold it to your eye, people don't feel like you're aiming something insidious at them. So that's a really good point. Real good point, I think.
Yeah, and when I was, the other thing that made me fall in love with that camera, it's when I was learning film photography. I had a rangefinder. So with that camera, it's a rangefinder, and it just kind of it's like bringing that memory back for me, and it's digital now, and it makes me like focus more on what's happening than kind of trying to carry my gear around, and
like I like saying, your gear should be transparent. It should be you and your subject, and that's what that camera does.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Let me ask quick about video, because obviously you're shooting video and making films, and I saw the Paris Island one. It was great. So is that something you want to do more and more, or you're being forced to do it in the sense that the newspaper is asking you to do it? And how do you approach one versus the other? Can you do them at the same time? Gear aside, I mean, you're in your headspace. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing that not a lot of people know about me. When I started photography, before even using photo camera, I started doing film. Mm-hmm. And the way I did that, I worked with a friend of mine who shoots concerts of famous Middle Eastern singers when they come to the U.S. So I was a second camera guy with him. So, and I shot film mainly. Like we did interviews before their concerts. So my background is video before photo. And Ed Kashi kind of brought a really cool point in one of his, classes. It's like nowadays you have to really do multimedia pieces, because photos sometimes are not enough. When you hear the subject of talking and the environment you're shooting it and bring it into the photo, it's a step up to your documentary work. My approach when going on a like bigger project at the Free Press is always to bring my video camera and trying to do, even if it's a 1-minute video, kind of do a short film.
Have you gotten to a point yet, and I asked a similar question to Griselda earlier, because she also shoots video and still at the same time. Do you ever go for screen grabs? Because a lot of the cameras right now can output a very high-quality JPEG still on the fly. Do you ever play around with that at all, or do you still balance? Do you still jump back and forth between still and video?
I'm not there yet. I haven't really experimented with that a lot. I did it maybe once, but it's just not the same for me. But it also slows you down a lot if you have to do photo and video. It's
That's
not
why
easy.
I was asking if you just resort to screen grabs, which I think within due time will be the norm. I think the quality will be that good.
So. Maybe if I'm shooting in 4K.
Well, yeah. That's what it is.
6K now.
Mm-hmm. You can now pull 8 meg files from it, which for newspaper and online work is more than enough. That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the assignment. If I know I have enough time and I can do it, of course I'll use my photo and a video. But if I'm like really, it's like a breaking news, for example, or something, I really have to just use a screen grab. I'll probably think about that.
Gotcha.
Okay. Let me jump back real quickly. Maybe this will be the last question on this subject. But regarding the long-form documentary, would you say the subject that you're working on is something that you chose or something that chose you? Kind of a cheesy question, but I mean, based on where you are, where you're living, I mean, would you prefer, or are you looking forward to covering a long-term project that takes you out of your milieu, out of Detroit and into some totally other subject? And would you approach it in the same way, you think?
Yeah, the reason why I chose this, project is just because I came to this country as a refugee. It's basically telling my family story and how we struggled to make it in the United States, because it wasn't really easy for me and my family to, come a new country. And about 12 years ago, I didn't speak a word in English. So it was for me learning a new language. I mean, I had it easy, I think, because I went to school. A lot of people who come a little bit older, they really struggle to make it in this country. They just take the jobs in the back room, for example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of important stories that like not a lot of people focus on with the refugees. I mean, okay, they say they struggle to be here. Do I become fully American, or do I become like just stay as an Arabic and living in this country, or how do I balance that? It's basically just balancing and not living in two worlds basically.
What would be the end to the long-term project for you?
I have 2 more years in my Anderson Wrench advanced photography program. I do have other projects in mind I really want to do, really cool stuff. But I think I'm gonna wait for them and trying to finish my refugee work first. But when you are like doing a long-term project and it's in my backyard, for example, here in Detroit, I don't know if there'll be an ending for that. I mean, these people I'm working with, they're gonna be friends for life. It's more about building a relationship with these people than just using them as a subject and leaving.
Well, that's a wrap on another really fine show, at least in my opinion. If you have any thoughts, suggestions, or comments, please email us at podcast@bhphoto.com. Don't forget to check out our homepage. Go to iTunes, sign up if you're not already a subscriber, and leave a review if you feel so inclined. You can also tweet us at BHPhotoVideo with the hashtag BHPhotoPodcast. On behalf of John, Jason, and myself, thank you so much for tuning in today.